Hello! We have a special series of 5 stories today where a star of Reddit and YouTube fame, the Bucket Woman, or is it pronounced a bouquet, makes a reappearance after almost a year with a collection of new stories. I have been waiting for enough things to happen before adding another part to our saga. And there has been a flurry of activity lately from our intrepid Aussie new mom and ever-comical, nosy busybody next door. There's enough for a part 2 and maybe even a part 3 soon. However, if you missed part 1 or have been listening only recently, you must pause and listen to part 1. Each story builds on itself and there's just no skipping ahead. So buckle in, there's no comments today as we speed ahead. Story 1. Bucket Woman versus the Snakes and Robo-Sprinkler again. Still here, still pregnant, and still petty. I feel like that should be on a t-shirt. Our new fence goes up next week, so hopefully this is our last hurrah with her visits. Setting the scene. We can turn off the Robo-Sprinklers to work in the front garden, but this involves accessing the garden tap from the backyard. The height of the side fence means whoever does this is hidden from next door's view. After the devastation of the rosemary, Martin cut it back one lunchtime when he was working from home. In a business suit, tie, and gumboots, I might add. So he came outside, pruned the plant, discreetly dropped some rubber snakes around the garden, did some cheerful whistling, and left. All without setting off the sprinklers. Bucket Woman watched this from next door. Next, we hired a rubbish skip and cleared up the hard waste pile. We roped in family and friends and offered to feed them and let them toss their own junk into our skip in exchange for their labor. Dad had a sausage sizzle going, and I was in charge of soup and hot drinks. Not in the same mug, that would be unpleasant. The Sprinkler boys had a rubber snake fight in the front yard. By the end of the day, we could park a car in the garage and most of the hard waste pile was in the skip, which was in the driveway. Only the original fence posts remained because the holes under the fence were still there. So Martin and Abe, my brother-in-law, sighed dramatically and put them back. Because we had people everywhere, we turned off the Robo-Sprinklers. Bucket Woman spent most of the day in her front yard, watching. Occasionally, someone would smile and wave, and she would disappear inside for a few minutes. Then come back out, like she was on an invisible string. At the end of the day, we closed the gates and turned the Robo-Sprinklers back on. Then we listened to the human bin chickens going through the skip and stumbling across the Robo-Sprinkler sensors. Smug satisfaction doesn't begin to describe the feeling. Then a Bucket Woman complained to the council that our garden was full of rubbish. The grass was overgrown, and there were snakes in our garden. She's been whining about rubbish and grass ever since I moved in, so the snakes gave her something new to complain about. Council inspected our garden. The back garden is neatly maintained. Martin even mows patterns into the grass, and the fence posts are neatly laid along the fence. In the front yard, some unnaturally colored, clearly fake rubber snakes are seen basking. The council officer asked if we'd had trouble with real snakes. Martin said no, but we'd call the snake catcher if we did. Australian reptiles are protected, and you can only remove snakes if you are licensed. That was about it. Council officer left, no infringement notice issued. Bucket Woman watched Martin and the council officer standing in the front yard, and not a drop of water on them. This must have emboldened her. And you can probably guess what happened that evening as we were getting ready for bed. I asked Martin, "Did you remember to turn the Robo-Sprinklers back on?" Outside, sound of Robo-Sprinkler 1 firing on the enemy, with much yelling and even a touch of unladylike language. Martin said, Yes, I did." OP remains my hero. I love the way her and her husband have weaponized something as harmless as water. It's kind of like when you squirt water at a cat that keeps jumping onto the counter to train them not to do it. Only difference here is they're totally messing with Bucket Woman because sometimes there is water and sometimes there isn't. It must be such a mystery to her. Story 2. Bucket Woman versus our taste in furnishings? What the fork? Okay, so this is still unfolding, but my head is so full of what the fork and I have to try to organize my thoughts somehow. Today is a public holiday, a national day of mourning for the late Her Majesty. First thing this morning, Martin found an A4 envelope in the letterbox. It was kind of addressed to me, so Martin asked if I wanted to open it, if I wanted him to open it, or if we should chuck the whole thing in the office and open it on Monday. I shouldn't have opened it. The Bucket Woman has written a long, very detailed letter about how badly furnished our house is. what kind of patterns and fabrics I should have used that are in keeping with our heritage. My curtains, she hates them. The lounge suite, she hates it. The pots of herbs I grow in the kitchen makes us look like peasants. The kitchen table and chairs, cheap. The bench tops, the carpets, the kitchen tiles, the dining suite, the outdoor furniture, the list goes on. Even my cat's ceramic bowls and my bedspread. But it's not all bad. She's gone to a lot of trouble to find examples of where I can find the kinds of furnishings, carpets, etc. she thinks I should have. As I said, it's very long, very detailed. It's also very well researched and completely barking. We are starting to see the funny side. The lounge suite was Martin's, so of course that's his bad taste. The herbs are mine, so of course I'm the peasant. The carpets, tiles, curtains, etc. were chosen by a professional, so we're thinking maybe a light tarring and feathering, or maybe just egging their windows. So now I'm pretty sure the reason she's been looking into our windows was to produce this document? Is manifesto too strong a word? Which is a huge relief in some ways, but is also seriously what the fork? Well, fine, bucket woman. New front fence goes up next week. You can criticize that as well. More what the forks is this thing about our heritage. We are not in a heritage-listed area. Our area was subdivided in the 1950s. My house is a 70s build. Vintage, yes. Antique of the future? Maybe. Heritage? Definitely not. When I say kind of addressed to me, it was addressed to Mrs. Martin's surname, which is kind of me if Martin and I were married and I took his surname and this was still the 1950s. Oh my goodness. This saga is brilliant. The ridiculousness of it all. Why the heck does Bucket Woman even care what furnishings they have? Or was this manifesto her backup plan? Also, why was there not an entire section dedicated to the sprinklers in this manifesto? That's what I'd like to know. Story 3. The Robo-Sprinklers claim another victim, not the Bucket Woman. For the unfamiliar, my partner bought some motion-activated sprinklers, dubbed the Robo-Sprinklers, for the front garden to help us with a nosy neighbor problem. This nosy neighbor, nicknamed the Bucket Woman after Hyacinth Bucket, its bouquet, haunts the untenanted rental property next door. No, she's not dead. If she were, we could call in an exorcist. She just hangs around to keep an eye on the empty property and complains a lot. She's fixated on bins, grass, snakes, and our interior decor. After extensive testing, Martin and some of his friends set up the sprinklers so that anyone crossing the garden beds would get squirted. If visitors stick to the paths, they will stay dry. Our family and friends know this, but for visitors, there is a sign asking people to respect our garden and keep to the paths. The sign was a "Thank you for having us" present from my brother and his wife. Well, today the Robo-Sprinklers claimed another victim. Next door to us, on the other side, is up for sale. Not the Bucket Woman, disappointing I know. And today, it's open for inspection. All well and good. Except we're expecting one of Martin's gardening mates, Robbo, to bring over some plants for the front garden. And there's nowhere to park in the street. So Martin texted Robbo that we'd leave the gate open so he could back into the driveway and unload. We knew we were taking a risk, but we have to live our lives too. Now I have to admit, I was asleep for most of this, but according to my partner, he heard one of the Robo-Sprinklers going off. He headed for the door, ready to tell his mate to stop mucking around with the sprinklers, the baby's asleep. Instead, he saw a complete stranger standing in our driveway, confused and a bit soggy. Just like the brochure he was clutching. Martin said he glared at the man, pointed to the sign, and then pointed towards next door. The guy left looking a bit sheepish and wet. When New Human and I came out of the bedroom, we could hear the sound of laughter and two grown men impersonating Bill Lorre. "Got him! Oh, he's gone!" Martin and Robbo were in the office watching the security footage. The Robo-Sprinklers victim came into our driveway and was looking at next door. Then he started backing up onto the garden bed, nearly standing on the sign until he crossed Robo-Sprinkler's 2's sensor and got squirted in the back. The guy jumped in the air, looked around to see what just hit him, and then Robo-Sprinkler 2 got him a second time. Then the guy ran for the driveway where Martin found him. Martin and I both hope this guy doesn't end up buying next door. We both agree that watching motion-activated sprinklers in action never gets old. So the list of the Robo-Sprinklers' known victims now includes Max the neighbor's cat, Bucket Woman, various people who were rummaging through a rubbish skip in our driveway, the Bucket Woman again, and now the guy who is hopefully not going to be our next door neighbor. An anonymous online reviewer also says the sprinklers are effective against possums and his mother-in-law, not to mention the legion of family and friends who have set them off deliberately. Martin wants me to say you are all bad influences and he's having way too much fun with the Robo-Sprinklers. Edited to make it clear it's not the bucket woman selling, it's the neighbor on the other side. Reddit users, a bad influence? What? No, that's not a thing. We don't vicariously live through the experience of others. Never. Love that Martin and Robbo are replaying these videos like an episode of America's Funniest Home Videos. For some reason, I'm picturing a John Cleese type from A Fish Called Wanda, oddly specific I know, jumping 10 feet into the air and spinning around ready to take the offender on. Too funny. Story 4. Bucket Woman versus the 12 Bins of Christmas. Sorry to bombard you just before Christmas, but we are currently playing chicken with the Bucket Woman over bins, and I wanted to share. For those not familiar, the Bucket Woman haunts the house next door to us. It's unoccupied, a fact that she blames on my underwear. I wash it and hang it on the line to dry in good weather. Scandalous, I know. She's also fixated on having the bins in by 9 a.m. on the morning of collection, known as Bin Day. This is how she got her nickname, as my partner, Martin, said it was like living next door to Hyacinth Bucket. It's bouquet. For record, the council does not give a rat's what time the bins come in. The Bucket Woman is on the corner. Our friends and neighbors, Kath and Terry, live opposite on one corner, and on another corner there are 3 units. Our council issues at least 4 bins per household for waste and recycling. 3 units means 3 times the bins out on Bin Day, and 3 times the mess for the Bucket Woman. This morning is Bin Day. I have a GP appointment, so I put New Human into her pram and walk to the bus stop, which is near these units. While I'm waiting for the bus, I see the Bucket Woman arrive and take all her bins in. I think she puts them out to make the place look occupied. Then she crossed the road to the units and began checking their bins. Most of the collections haven't been done yet, but that didn't stop the Bucket Woman getting all melodramatic and making exaggerated, why, Lord, why gestures. Then Buckety dragged the empty bins off the street and passive-aggressively lined them up in the driveway and went back inside her place. The bus came along and off New Human and I went. When we came home, there was no sign of the Bucket Woman. I whispered to her, "Looks like the coast is clear," and New Human and I headed for home. I should add that I wanted to get indoors before the next rain squall. Only as I rounded the corner, I saw the Bucket Woman outside my place. After months of not speaking to us, she chose today to break her silence and talk to me about the bins. I tried to brush past her, saying not now, I need to take care of the baby. But Buckety tried to get between us and the gate. I have no idea how she expected me to get all the bins and a pram around her and through the gate unless she expected me to grow more arms. New Human let out a cry, so I looked Bucket Woman dead in the eye and said, "She's just pooped herself, only much cruder." Buckety backed away, either because of my language or the prospect of baby poo. I ran through the gate, made sure it was closed behind us, and then dashed inside the house. I've decided those bins are staying out there until we are good and ready, and Buckety will just have to wait. The new fence means she can't bring the bins in and dump them in our driveway. And it's too tall and spiky for her to lift them over. Those bins aren't going anywhere until we are good and ready, which is 9 p.m., according to the reminder in Martin's phone. Bless his electronically organized petty heart. We're also predicted thunderstorms later this afternoon, which means the new plants will get a good watering. And so will the Bucket Woman, if she's still hovering around like a blowfly. OP tempted fate when she said the coast was clear. Rookie mistake. Bucket Woman really is like one of those drat mosquitoes that's buzzing around in your room at night when you're trying to sleep, and all you can hear is that irritating noise. Try as you might, you can't seem to get rid of it. Story 5. Bucket Woman versus the 12 Bins of Christmas, the sequel, includes PettyRevenge in a song. Quick recap, my batty neighbor, the Bucket Woman named after Hyacinth, has a thing about bringing rubbish bins in by 9 a.m., so the street doesn't look messy. Yesterday, she passive-aggressively blockaded our neighbor's driveway with empty bins, then tried to stop me entering my own home so I could listen to her lecture on the importance of bringing the bins in. My New Human saved the day with a well-timed gift in her nappy. I managed to escape and decided to remain holed up in my house and not bring the bins in. Bucket Woman remained outside, hovering around the bins. We were expecting a storm and we weren't going to bring the bins in until we were good and ready. My partner defined that as 9 p.m. The bins did not come in at 9 p.m. One bin came in late afternoon. Martin's parents have come for Christmas and New Year's and are staying in accommodation nearby. They came over and his dad brought one of the bins in for us. Martin's mom and dad were quite pleased to have their first sighting of a bucket woman in the wild, too. At one point, there was a big clap of thunder and I checked outside. The bins were still there, but the bucket woman had gone. She cracked first. Ha! Then life happened. We had dinner, got new humans settled, and then we got talking with Martin's mom and dad, who spilled the beans on his childhood adventures. The power stayed on, so it didn't turn into a candlelight supper, but Martin's mom put some Christmas carols on in the background, so I guess you could call it a small musical soiree. Especially when I started turning the 12 days of Christmas into the 12 bins of Christmas. So the upshot is, Martin ignored the reminder. It got late, and the weather wasn't the greatest, so the bins stayed where they were. He swears he thought about bringing the bins in when he got back from dropping his parents off, but he didn't. And the rest of the bins stayed out all night in the street. Martin's taking leave while his parents are here, so he eventually wandered out this morning to bring them in PJs and bare feet, unshaven and hair unbrushed, and without caffeine in his system. Bucket Woman was next door in the garden. Martin claims that even in his uncaffeinated state, he could feel the waves of disapproval emanating, and saw Cat's bum expression so dense it seemed to bend light around it. So there you have it. I am a shameless blonde hussy who leaves her bins out all night, and Martin has very much let his standards slip by not getting dressed before bringing them in. And unfortunately for all of us, Hokey Pokey Guest List provided the song, so plug your ears. In the 12th bin of Christmas, my neighbor put for me 12 complaints to council, 11 cat's bum faces, 10 page letters, 9 bring your bins in, 8 carpet samples, 7 cheap-ass cushions, 6 calls to police, 5 rubber snakes, 4 tacky armchairs, 3 fence posts, 2 Robo-Sprinklers, and a bedspread my bestie made for me. Fear not, I will not be quitting my day job to sing. Hopefully, I'll quit it to continue reading you beautiful people lots more stories, but definitely not to sing. Please be kind in the comments. But back to Bucket Woman. We all know that there is more where this came from. There is no way that Martin or OP will let her battiness win, not on their watch. Any guesses on where this might be going? I think Bucket Woman is going to scale their fence, or maybe find some other means of getting into their yard. Perhaps an apparatus that will launch her over Mission Impossible style. I know that sounds crazy, but there is no shortage of crazy here. Also, really bad, but I kind of think it would be funny if they started putting their bins in front of Bucket Woman's house. Just to see what happens. Terrible, I know. And that's it for today. Until next time, shine bright, Starlight. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.